Night.
Yeah, and they put you in a lot of tough situations, and they were different, since the last time we played them in the regular season. They just get you scrambling, running around, and Simmons making a bunch of plays. So it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy in the playoffs. We're a little bit better with our force tonight. And we're able to, make some shots down the stretch to be able to keep them at bay.
What did you see from Dwayne tonight that
Yeah.
made him so effective?
Yeah, I saw moments. That's what defines Dwayne Wade. And we've seen that so much before over his career. He's not going to be logging the 40 minutes a game that he used to when I coached him, a few years ago. But in these compact minutes, he can settle the group with his experience, the championship level experience, just to add a little bit of calm for some of our young guys. It doesn't have to be this kind of game every single night. Tonight, he needed to reach back and have one of those games, but he has great maturity and great presence to understand that it might be different the next game, and if he has to facilitate, he'll do that as well. But it was a very calming effect on the rest of our guys.
Erik, they cut that 16-point lead down to 2. At that point, what did you see? How they were able to handle that from that point on?
They turned it into overdrive. A lot of transition opportunities there. A couple offensive rebounds. Particularly when we got up, we still had an 11-point lead. Then we gave an offensive rebound, the open 3 to Sarge, and then Simmons really started to push, and we gambled a couple times, and boom, the lead just disappeared like that. But we showed some resilience to be able to execute. We had to get some coherent offense at that point, and we did. Goran and Dwayne were making plays on high pick and rolls, and again, if you have guys like that, at least you can get something in your wheelhouse, and that's what we did. And JJ scored a couple big ones down the stretch.
Erik, it's probably an obvious question, but does this just change the entire mindset of this team now?
No, come on. If you watched any of our games this year with Philly, they're just crazy games, so competitive. There's a couple of games where both teams gave up big leads. So even during the course of the second half, we know how big of a third quarter team they are, and we've paid the price for that in one of our games up here early in the season. They don't stop coming. So all we did was get one game. We have to get back to Miami and rest for a day, and then start to gear up again. This is a very competitive series.
Coach, you've been around Dwayne for so long. How much longer can he give you and the NBA performances like this?
I don't know. I'm enjoying just every minute of this. We've been through every stage of our pro careers together. I don't know how long this will last. That's why I want to enjoy it now. I want to make the most of these moments. It's fun having them back, part of the family, and it just feels normal. And again, it's not the same role. It's not 2009 Dwayne. It felt like he played 40 minutes tonight. He only played 25, and it probably would have been less if we didn't give up that lead. But he was. I always say it's like that country song. Not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.
Coach, I mean, I know you pay attention to the numbers when certain guys are on the floor, and in general, the numbers with him on the floor haven't been great this year. But is it just a matter of, hey, let's see what he can do, and then everyone...
You're talking about Dwayne?
Dwayne,
He's
yeah.
different. You put him in a Miami Heat uniform. I don't care what his numbers were anywhere else or all year long or at different times. He was for these moments.
Excuse me. Do you even consider the specter of Embiid in this series now, or do you just...
I think you have to. It would be irresponsible if we didn't.
Erik, James has been lately, back to what we saw a lot last year, but especially these last 2 games, he's really turned it around. Can you just talk about, or turned it up? Can you talk about what, what you've seen from him and, this uptick in play lately?
Yeah, and he's our heart and soul. He does so many things behind the scenes and things that don't show up in the box score. You're happy for him when he actually has a game, and you notice it in the box score. You notice it with the big plays he's making. But he does a lot of things that just make our team different and more dynamic. But he's been playing this way for a while. It's the guy that we fell in love with last year. He's a little bit healthier now, but the last 6 weeks he's been playing impactful basketball for us.
Justice did tonight on the defensive end, especially on Ben, the physicality and just the overall job you guys did.
Yeah,
three-point line.
Simmons can overpower you. It's a unique blend of absolute power and speed and size. It has to be a bunch of different guys. You have to have a roster and some personnel where you can, throw different guys on him, because he's going to go through guys and put foul trouble on you. He's going to collapse the defense and get you in rotations. It's hard to imagine he's 20 years old. But Justice is a competitor. He was probably the one positive from game one, how he put his competitive will on that game, and he carried it over to the first half.
And just as a quick follow-up, if I could, the job that Richardson did tonight, especially getting to the rim after what kind of happened in game one. Yeah,
it's not necessarily about the scoring. He's kind of an all-around player. He doesn't get a lot of play calls for him, so sometimes it just depends on the flow and whether the ball is going his way or not. That's a tough position to be in, when we ask him to defend all the team's other, top scorers, and then just kind of space the floor and create some second opportunities for us. Sometimes you can get out of rhythm doing that. So I wasn't really overreacting to game one. I just wanted him to, put his fingerprints on the game, and it didn't have to necessarily be in the box score. But he was more assertive tonight on both ends, and that's the Jay Rich that we like and we need.
Hassan only played 15 minutes tonight, but he was a little more engaged.
Great minutes,
tonight.
no doubt. His activity level was superb. Without those 15 minutes, it might have been totally different. Those were much needed. He got in, that fourth foul. I had every intention to put him back in the fourth. We just didn't get around to it when they made their run, and they went even smaller. But we can definitely build on that. Okay, thank you.
So many keys there, but the last thing he said about Hassan Whiteside, sometimes we get caught up in the box score, and if we look, we'll be like, okay, 15 minutes, not a lot of production offensively, but you heard Coach Spo just say an important, impactful 15 minutes, especially defensively.
Yeah, the thing about the playoffs is every series takes on a personality of its own, and a lot of times matchups, unless you are a true superstar, matchups oftentimes are going to dictate who has the biggest impact. And this is a series with Embiid not being out there. It's going to be harder for Whiteside to put his fingerprints on it. And they recognize that. They're fortunate enough to have a guy like Olynyk who can come in and matches up better with Ilyasova. So, that's something he's got to understand, because that could all change if Embiid plays in Game 3.
Well, you heard Spoelstra saying he's going to prepare for Embiid to play in Game 3. Let's see if Brett Brown alludes to Embiid playing.
No, it had to do with what I just said. I thought the physicality of the game, we give them credit, was elite. Those guys were really sort of bending us backwards, and I decided to go with TJ for that reason.
Brett, what would you pinpoint as the changes from game one to game two, what you guys did and also what you saw coming from the Heat?
I mean, they responded as we talked about, as I anticipated. Words to try to convey that sometimes, or most times, are difficult and don't equal what you feel. And I give the Miami Heat credit in relation to the physicality of that game. I think that their ball pressure and standing up our passes was excellent. And I think Dwayne Wade offensively was just vintage Dwayne Wade.
Coach, is this kind of like a, okay, welcome to the playoffs type of moment for your younger guys?
I mean, you can phrase it in a bunch of ways. To me, it's the reality of NBA basketball, and it only gets harder. And our guys will learn more than they've learned in a regular season in the next few weeks, however long we play in the playoffs, about themselves in real time. And this game, we haven't lost since March, I think, 13th. And, this game equals the NBA playoffs. This is a snapshot to what you should expect when, a team is going down 2-0 if they're not able to find a win.
You guys cut the lead to 2 points with 4:29 left. After that, hit a little bit of a drought. What were the issues offensively with the execution on the stretch?
I think Dwayne's steal on Dario, we went on a 16-2 run, and I think, late 3 minutes, early 4 minutes, he came from behind and stole that ball from Dario. With about a minute something left, we had that offensive rebound, and Cove tried to find JJ and threw that pass between JJ's leg. And I give Miami credit. I felt, as you just sort of feel in the game, that any of the runs that we were making, that they ended up making some shots to stop the runs. And, I give them credit. But I think your question, I think Dwayne's steal changed the game. If you were to pick sort of one defining moment, one defining play, I think it was that.
Brett, did you anticipate the adjustment they made moving Hassan over onto Dario? And then also, what did you see out of the other adjustments they made defensively?
We'll go back and look at it all. I mean, I think to speak in more detail right now, I'm not going to do that. I look forward to seeing the tape. I think the physicality was the thing that stood out more than stuff like that, the matchups.
Brett, in terms of the three-point line, 7 for 36. If they're not falling, do you want them to go and maybe get a different shot? I mean, 33 of 60 is the other number. So, I don't know, just your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think that's, kind of who we are. And, some of our guys had a rough night. I'll go back and see the ones that we think were contested, but to pivot out of it and just sort of point at that number, I'm not right now prepared to do that. It's been sort of who we are lately, and without Joel, it's really, I think, I don't know, I hope it's smart, to cater what you're doing to the team's strengths. And so when you see that number, and then the other night we broke a franchise record, and you sort of give and take with that. I think what it does do for me, though, D, is it highlights the need to when you're seeking to become a whole team, you need Joel Embiid. If you look at the second period, the game isn't out of whack except for the second period. If we all just looked at the box score, it looks quite balanced except for the second period. I didn't think we handled the second period well. They sped up Ben. We learned, we saw a different look on Ben Simmons tonight. And in those moments where, they're struggling to speed them up, that's where you want to post Joel Embiid and settle the gym. And I felt tonight it was a really strong example for me on when you wished you had him.
What did you think about to your right? What did you think about the way Ben responded to the pummeling he took? It seemed like he really played through it and kind of showed an aggressive streak there.
Yeah, I thought he was good. What was he? He was 24, 8, and 8. With only 2 turnovers. And as I said, 3 minutes ago, he's going to learn more about himself in this playoff experience than anything in regular season teaches you. And for the very large majority of our NBA season, we went through defenses that, never left the paint. Their pickup points were back at the foul line as Ben was dribbling up the floor. And tonight, the whole thing changed. It's a little bit like Chris Dunn did to him in Chicago. I would say it was like 95-5, 95 tilting on. They didn't really guard him in the regular season, and 5% they would get out and try to chase him. And tonight they did. And I thought for the most part he handled it well. There's always going to be point guard moments where, what are we doing, what are we in type stuff. But by and large, I thought he handled their pressure and their physicality well.
Brett, sorry, Coach, over here. Everything's been a learning experience, and obviously this is just the latest of what you're going to learn. Going into Game 3, are you more inquisitive, curious, apprehensive about how this team, what they've learned tonight, and how they're going to respond?
I think there's some of that. I feel the thing that's most on my mind is there is a way you have to play in the NBA playoffs from a toughness standpoint and a physicality standpoint that was shown tonight. And they responded as I knew they would. And to feel that, and I go it completely to the second period. That's the thing that has nothing to do with the magic play or the matchup. It's not that. There's a spirit in which they played tonight that was desperate, and that's what is most on my mind going down to Miami.
Coach, a lot of Wade's offense it seems like that's the kind of shots you want to force. Mid-range, off the dribble, contested shots. Is that tough to sort of deal with when a star can just come out and make those kinds of shots?
It is, and I hear your question/statement. It's true. There were a lot of long twos. There was a rhythm and a calmness to his game, like he didn't feel too much. He really didn't feel too much. And there was a real sort of, confidence the way he played to make those shots that we're speaking of. I think, we got to do a little bit better job of recognizing, how he sort of got to floor spots, especially out of middle pick and rolls, and do a better job with that. But as I said, I think the main thing that is on my mind is, that is classic Dwayne Wade.
Two more guys. You guys seemed like you were hedging a little bit harder on the perimeter than maybe you typically do. I guess just what was the thought process behind that, and how do you think it was executed? Yeah, just trying to have some level of equal, physical presence, trying to reroute ball handlers, ball carriers. And I think that if you study it, Derek, like you look at the way Miami plays on so many gap balls and so many dribble handoffs, if they're able just to create some mismatches, like early in the first half, we had JJ on Dwayne a few times, you're trying to avoid that. And by and large, I thought that our aggressiveness on the ball was pretty good in the second half. I think it enabled us to get on that 16-2 run, to your point, with some hard hedges and sort of blitzing. It's something that we'll look at, and it may mean we will do that more.
Coach, how much significance, if any at all, does that game-winning streak snap tonight? How much significance does that have for you and your group?
Zero. Absolutely zero. We've always sort of lived in a boring way day to day. From time to time I'd hear the locker room talk about a streak, and we were all aware of it. But really what it did for us, and for, in my opinion, when I assessed the group, it was sort of insulation. There was a proud aspect that we were getting better. We did it, with Joe. We did it without Joe. And we were trending. We were growing. All the math and the numbers and the feeling was going in the way that we want. That's what the streak represented to me more than a number. It was a feeling. And I think that the confidence that we generated from that, progressive winning can provide insulation. Like we will get through this. We will come back. We will go down to Miami and get ready to play Game 3. And they did what they had to do. They broke our serve. They split. And so somehow we have to try to do the same. And I got faith in our group that it is in them to do that.
Brett, Joel just went on social media, and I'll give you the PC version of what he said. He said he's sick and tired of being babied. What has he said to you in terms of frustration with what's going on with him right now, whether that's just not being able to practice, play, whatever?
I mean, without getting into private conversations, the flavor that he delivers our conversations, our private conversations, he just wants to play basketball. He wants to be with his team. He wants to play in front of the fans. And he wants to see this through. And when he's not able to do that, he gets frustrated. And I respect his frustration. It's born out of competitiveness, and it's born out of him wanting to be with his team. And so the medical side, the different reasons, I'm not going to go there, but I do know the spirit in which he delivers that tweet that you just talked about reflects my conversations with him, that is completely driven out of team competitiveness. I want to play basketball, that type of flavor, more than anything.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, everybody.
Joel Embiid on social media. Indeed, we'll talk about that next. How about Dwayne Wade passing Larry Bird 10th all-time on a